Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
Good evening and welcome to Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you very much for joining us as we are going to have Courtney Marchesani here for tonight's show. Dirty Filth is here with another crazy cartoon. And the best part about tonight, we have each and every one of you. How exciting is that? All right, shall we check out who? I say we do. Kitty Caddywhack in the gold medal position. Eternity Eternal with a silver. Race fan. Race fan with a bronze medal tonight. Yeah, look at that. Look at that. Hi, Kira. How are you? You're looking lovely and dapper. Give Mark a hug for me if you don't mind. People, if you're wondering, yes, the Oilers won, but I want to show you something. Not looking for sympathy, but this here, right now, this is the face of depression. This is the face of depression. Remember that. Sometimes you just can't tell. David Nordenberg, how you doing? Good to see you. And Frankie B. Robert Lamont, thank you for coming on in as we continue on with Roll Call. Tyler 420, good to see you. Hi there, Ethanol. As well as Mel WD40 is here lubing us up for tonight's show because you always want to go into a show nice and smooth. You don't want any rigidness. So, Mel, thank you for the lube. We appreciate it. I'm wearing my lube shirt right now. Mama Catherine, I love you, my dear. I hope you're having a wonderful, wonderful night. And I know you love Courtney on the air, so it'll be a good show for you, my dear. And let's see here. Fast Hemi is here. Fast Hemi will be signing autographs after the show. Line up to the left of the studio, if you don't mind, to the left of the studio. Archon Jackpot, welcome back. Thank you for joining us. Road Flare, how are you? Derek of the Whoopoo, how you doing? Glenn John McEnroe is here. The Pride of Wimbledon. That's what they call him. Paramarv, how are you? Good to see you. Missouri Man, thanks for coming on in as we continue on with our roll call tonight. Little Timmy James, how you doing, buddy? Scott B., thanks for coming on in. Hi there, Amy WC. And who is next on our list here? Jerry O'Brien, how are you? Jerry O'Brien will be signing autographs after the show as well. Line up to the right of the studio, if you don't mind, to the right of the studio. Operation Shutdown, good to see you. And who is next? Millennium, my man. Amanda, how are you, my dear? And who is next? Thomas Rock, thanks for coming on in. Scrolling all on down. Tracy, the alien girl, thank you for joining us. Yennefer with the soft J, thank you for coming on in. And Doug Shelby is here. The Doug Shelby has arrived, which means we can officially start this show. Stephanie Kenny Blankenship, good to hear you or see you. Necessary Dialogue, thanks for coming on in. And who is next? The lovely Kimberly Burgess. How are you, my friend? Undead Jed, nice to see you as we continue on with our roll call tonight. Algaray over on Twitch. No Jim tonight. He was partying, cheering for the Oilers. Yeah, he deserved a well-deserved game off, even though he has no fingernails left after overtime. Jeremy Jones, what do you say, buddy? What do you say? Number 2 in your program, starting on defense from Stockholm, Sweden, Lars Jansson. There he is. And Candy, thank you for joining us. Hi, J Truth Seeker. Exquisite, Ozzy, nice to have you all here. Dragonfly, good to see you. I'm Hardcore on X. Thank you for coming on in. Danielle Stusrud, thank you for joining us. Welcome to SOR Chat. Let's go to the radio side. Hello and welcome to the radio and podcast side of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. We have Courtney Marchesani talking about the UFO world. Tonight we are on roll call on YouTube. Dragonfly, how you doing? Flat 6, Pam Harris, nice to see you all. Dry Toast, the best name on YouTube, right there. Thank you for joining us. Warded Dragon, good to see you. High Desert Rat, Bobbert, good to see you both here. And who is next? I'm trying to race to get it all in. W. Decker, Area 53, thank you for kicking off the Super Chat tonight. Really appreciate your love and support of SOR, and thank you, Pam Harris, as well. Throw those horns up, everybody. Let's rock.
Are you ready to hear your mystic voice of the night?
It's time to wake up.
He's here. Shush. Be quiet. He's ready for you to listen. Let's point our ears towards the little cabin in the woods, where together, my friends, we own the night. It's time for Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott.
From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot. Read the Newswire. Check out our swag as well. You can follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. We have an amazing show of UFO talk coming up. Courtney Marchesani, insider extraordinaire, is going to join us momentarily. Then we have a busy hour number 3. Swamp Dweller will kick things off. Little Timmy James will bring in the UFO report. It's Dave 101 night and the weird news of the week. One of our most popular guests on this show, she's the former co-host of this UFO report here on Spaced Out Radio. Courtney Marchesani has her fingers dabbled in everything UFOs, from experiencers to the scientific side to the more meaty side of what's happening on the government sites when it comes to the UAP UFO debate. Courtney is here to update us on what's really going on in the world today of UFOs. Why? Well, because it's a hot topic. It is one that seems to have a ball of confusion going on all around it. And maybe, just maybe, Courtney can bring some sense to this meaty topic. Courtney Marchesani, it is always good to have you on Spaced Out Radio, my friend. How are you?
Hey, Dave. I'm great. It's great to be back on SOR. How are you?
Good. You know, I will say this. In the last year, you are the most requested guest that we have.
I didn't know that. That's really cool.
Yes, the most requested. People absolutely love you. And I think it's tantamount to the fact, and I never get to use the word tantamount, so I'm going to use it here. Okay?
Nice.
All right. I think it's tantamount to the fact that you are someone who wraps into every category of UFO possible. You are a researcher. You are an experiencer. You are an author. You are somebody with connections. You are somebody who is bringing out the news when others are not. You are an amateur journalist, citizen journalist, which is very, very awesome with what you write. You do everything. You're building sources. You're going to conferences. You're talking to people. You're getting the notes, not just the Coles Notes version that many of us get. You're right in the middle of it. And realistically, I can see why that people just want you on this show.
Well, I do a lot of research. I try to read everything. I try to read all the papers that are coming out, and there's just been so much. So I do think that gives SOR listenership an advantage, because I read the academic papers and then I try to compare them with what's going on in the media. But then there's also the back end where you have experiencers who are really on the cutting edge of a lot of things. And so, yeah, I can see why, it's interesting to tie all those things together, especially in a nice rundown or shakedown on the news or the report.
Do you think that the public really knows how ugly behind the scenes this story is?
Oh, dear, no. No. I don't think so. And I would caution anybody who's getting into the field. I mean, there's so many new people coming into the field, so many new podcasts right now jumping up into the scene. I mean, I was going to make a list of all the new podcasts that were coming out, and I didn't have time for it, but there's a new one every day. So there's so much, there's like an onslaught of information coming in from multiple directions. And it is important to know that the experiencers are really the ones who are kind of, the way I feel, they have the finger on their pulse. They just seem to get information, or they make predictions, or they're feeling the wave of things that are coming. And a lot of times that wave turns out to be accurate.
What is something from that darker side of ufology that people don't get to see on a daily basis that you think is important for the public to know?
Oh, I think it's the behind the scenes of the whistleblower stories and the reporting and who gets to report it and all the things that happen around whistleblower communities and the people that are in that network and how they communicate, how they protect whistleblowers, but also when the whistleblower comes out, what happens to the whistleblower's life. I think that's one of the most important things, especially right now, because there's a huge divide. Having the Wall Street Journal article coming out saying that our own government and the Pentagon used fake NDAs against our own service members about UFOs. And that field of, study is now just had a bomb thrown into it. And I can't imagine how some of the whistleblowers feel knowing that they've been using fake NDAs.
We're going to get into that story in the next half hour, but for people who may be hearing you for the first time, why is this such an impassioned topic of yours?
Well, I think it's because, and I've stated this before, I had my own encounter in 2015, and I wasn't public until 2021. And for those 6 years, I really worked hard on understanding the field and learning, growing. There was just so much history to learn. And so I'm passionate about it because I'm somebody that's had a direct close encounter.
Your close encounter, how did it burn into your brain and affect you for your life?
I've talked about this before too, but it took me a while after I got back home, because I was traveling when it happened, to integrate the after effects of the encounter. That took months. I would say it almost took up to a whole year. So that's the part of it that was really difficult to deal with.
Now that you have ingrained yourself within this community, and there are a number of great researchers out there that I would pool you with who are doing yeoman's work regarding trying to get the information out, how do you go about getting these people to talk with you?
Well, I think it's just getting to know people. It's just like any other kind of friendship or relationship. You meet people Sometimes it's just curiosity. So you have questions about different aspects of what other people have experienced. And so it's just kind of a getting to know you, warming up. But then in other areas, people contact me. People will contact me and ask about what's the best way to do this? How do I approach this? And so I'm always open to answering questions and talking to people about whatever they're trying to do in the UFO community, whether that's tell their story or whether that's looking up a project or they're trying to network. So I try to do a lot of support and help.
When you try and help people, because there's so many people trying to figure out the understanding of how not only real this subject is, but to the depths of the rabbit holes that it goes. How do you tell somebody to get started in this? I wouldn't even know where to begin.
I think it really depends on the person and where they are. And a lot of times it's resource materials that people are looking for. Sometimes people will have heard my story because I've gone on a couple podcasts and talk about it. So people will reach out to me that way and say, I heard your story. This sounds very similar. And they'll ask questions and kind of compare and contrast. And then if it's not related to questions about my own experience, then I listen deeply to what they're looking for. And then I try to provide the resources or the contacts that can help them move forward.
Do you find that there's backlash for that?
Sometimes. I mean, you have to be very careful about connecting people because you don't always know about agendas. So you have to be very smart about asking what people are looking for. I don't get too often where people are just trying to get contact information, me to get to someone else, but you can kind of tell if that's the case. And you have to be discerning on who you connect.
Has there ever been an incident with you where you've been given information and then told, look, you cannot talk about this? I know we talked about the Jason Sands one on this show, but what's that like when somebody gives you information? They're like, I don't want you going public with this. This is just for your ears only. If it gets out there, I know where it will come from. We all have heard that statement, but give us an example of a situation like that.
It happens all the time. And sometimes you get information and you don't know, and people don't clarify, like, I don't want you to say this. So you have to kind of sit and wait on it. And it's always wise to sit and wait on things before you share them, because sometimes things aren't accurate. And then it's not because it's disinformation per se, but it's because it's too early or it's too soon. And you have to do a lot of checking yourself to make sure that it's reliable information. So I've had all those permutations. I've had don't say anything, or you can share, when this drops, or you can share this when you feel like it's ready. And so most of the people, when they share stuff with me, they trust me that I'm not going to say anything about it.
Have you ever got a piece of information that would blow this story wide open and there is absolutely nothing you can do about it?
Yeah, I do. I have that right now on a couple different lines of research, that if people knew, it would just, it could be very destructive and destroy, the field of research. So those are things you have to sit on and wait. But yes.
Okay, so let's lead into that, because I don't think it's fair to actually say what it is, and I don't know what it is. I mean, you've been given information. You don't tell me everything, and I don't want you to tell me everything, and I don't tell you everything that I've learned. But because we all want to build our sources and build that trust. But when somebody gives you a piece of information like that, the human side of it says, oh, I want to tell everybody. I want to tell everybody. I want to let this out. This could break the whole story wide open. But then there's the reality part about it, because you don't know 100% if you could trust the source fully, or if what the consequences would be if you were to relay that information. How do you keep that straight and narrow with that? There's
the one that's the like supreme highest thing. If you've got to check and see if there's any classified information involved. If that's the case, you can't leak it because legally, you have a legal case against you. So I have had that, and that was kind of the primary thing. I just couldn't share it, not only because I would be in trouble, but the person who shared it would be in trouble too, and including jail. So there's that part of it. But then there's the fact checking part of it, which I think is the most important part of all. And the fact checking, you can't just rely on your source. You have to go and try to find historical information, contextual information, other sources that know your source, worked at the same place, the same time, the same location. And so it takes time. You can't just leak stuff. You really do. If you have integrity, you really do want to do your best that you can. And sometimes you just hit a very real wall. You're just not going to break through that wall because you don't have the type of contacts that are so high level that could help you. And if they did, they probably shouldn't, So you have to do all those different checks and balances before you release the information.
Do you like it? Do you like that pressure?
No, I don't really like it. And I was going to ask you when you were talking about, the Jason Sands and that you've mentioned that here before. I was going to ask you if you had it to do again when I said that night, hey, I have a story. I'm just going to run with it. Would you have retracted that now, going back and looking at how everything flowed from that or not?
No. No, and I know that I've been punished for that.
Me too. We both have. Yeah, we're collateral damage.
Yeah, and I don't think that... Here's the thing, and I'll be honest with you, I'm suffering from a bout of depression tonight, so I'm just going to be blunt because that's the only way I can be.
Okay.
I have had a run my whole life, Courtney, of being blamed for things. When other people do this exact same thing, nobody craps on them. Okay? But when I do it, I get absolutely shelved. And so I'm used to it. It sucks when it happens, but I am used to the idea that there are people out there who will take it a little bit further with me. And so when we broke the Jason Sands story, I thought it was the right thing to do because nobody would have said a thing if it was other people out there. And I will point out, with all respect to these people, because I absolutely love them, Ross Coulthart and George Knapp, if they would have broken the story, nobody would have said a thing. There would have been no hand slapping. There would have been no blacklisting or anything like that. Okay, and this is where, I get called a whiner or a complainer. And frankly, I don't care because it's about being a journalist first. It is frustrating when you do the exact same thing as everybody else and you get barked at when other people are doing their job as journalists and they get the praise, they get the clicks, they get the subscriptions, they get the million views or whatever it may be. Now, a lot of people will say that sounds like jealousy. Okay, it's not. It's all part of the business. I've broken stories on this show and I've been ripped off of stories on this show. And so would I do it again? Yes, I think we did the right thing. And I will stand up for us. I will stand up for you. I will stand up for our listenership, our radio stations that rely on us to do our job. And that's what it comes down to.
Oh, good. I'm glad you feel that way because that year was literally a nightmare, what we unleashed. And it was a moment of courageousness, I thought, in the moment. And I, like I told you, I did consult a lawyer and I said, should I be concerned about this? And, after we ran with it, he was like, are you releasing anything classified? And I said, no, nothing. And he just had a different perspective on all of it. He was like, it's a story. You're sharing a story. And so he broke things down legally for me. And he was like, why would you be afraid? You might get criticism, but that's what, that's what you're there for. So I do think the accessibility that happened with Jason was very revealing. I think that was something that was exposed in our community of how tightly stories are held and the resources and the networks around those whistleblowers. And so the interesting thing going through that journey with Jason that I really found out was that the journalists are very competitive. That's the industry. That's what it is. But I did find a sort of a callousness, I would say, that I didn't necessarily expect to uncover, which is like, get the story, keep that person in close confidence, don't allow the story to leak, keep it tightly held. And in some entertainment, and in some entertainment projects, they even have to sign NDAs. And so there's like this friendly thing that's made with whistleblowers to keep them safe. We're your friends, we're your buddies. But if you step outside of that, it's pretty cutthroat and ruthless. And those same people may not support you or back you, even though you're a whistleblower. And that's the part that I found to be very disturbing.
Well, and this is why I have said many a time, okay, without whining, because I got accused of whining last night with Science Bob.
Oh, okay.
Not by Science Bob, but by one of our listeners.
Okay.
And I'm going to put it this way. When you control the media, you control the message. And they have already stated, whoever they are, the powers that be, already stated who they want to get the messages out. Anybody who is an outsider on that is considered, an outcast. They don't want Jason Sands talking to you. They don't want you or me or other people in those Discord groups where heavy conversations are happening. There are hundreds of these private groups. Here's one thing that the public may not know, and you can confirm this. There are hundreds of groups out there, these chat groups, whether it's on Discord or Facebook or Signal or WhatsApp, going on daily about UFO sources, UFO news. If it's encrypted, there is a conversation going on, and they are sharing heavy detail of what can and cannot be said. They're talking about people within the community. It could be somebody like Chris Bledsoe, who's an experiencer, and that's all he talks about is being an experiencer. Or it could be somebody like Courtney or Nicole Sakic, or Science Bob, or Gary Nolan, or Ross Coulthard, or Dave Scott. It could be about anybody. And they all will gather around, and they will say, hey, Courtney released this information, or Dave released this information, or Jimmy Church released this information. We didn't want him to. We didn't know it was going to happen. So let's make sure that we tighten up the strings a little bit so these people aren't getting anything more. And you can confirm, you've seen those conversations.
Yeah. I mean, I got ejected, from a group that we were all in because of Jason. I was told that it was really responsible what I did, but the individuals in the group were really confused because they didn't see how the progression had gone between the SOR story, the Twitter spaces, and then Jason coming out. So that's the other part that I wanted to mention. A lot of people don't know what we're doing or track, both SOR and Twitter spaces and Facebook groups. And so people don't really have all the information. So they make a lot of snap judgments about, what you're doing without knowing how you did it or why you did it. And so I do think that there were a lot of misperceptions, and I was out there really defending us and defending myself immediately. And then eventually, when it got to be all too much, I just kind of took a step back and realized that some things happen that you can control in the beginning immediately, and then there's just a huge wave that's just out of your control, and you just have to stand by and let it happen. You can't worry about the things that people say or what they do to you or how they bite you in the back, you know, in your community and the things that they say, or if they choose not to talk with you anymore.
Courtney Marchesani continues when we return. Lots of controversy about the new UFO conspiracy. We're going to get into that next on Spaced Out Radio. It's going to be fun the next half hour.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that you had a bad night last night and somebody called you a whiner.
You know what? It wasn't just that. I can take that. I'm just kind of pointing that out. But, you know, when I will say this, because your degree is in psychology, correct?
Yep.
Okay, so I will say this. When it rains, it pours. And then it's the nickel and dimes that hit the hardest. And been having just some hard things happen recently. Like, not bad things, but just enough to kind of tip the scale a little bit where you feel kind of lost.
Well, you know, you can always call me. I want you to always
I
know
know
that. You can always call me and pick up the phone and let's just run through some scenarios. Please don't hesitate.
And trust me, thank you for that. I actually, before the show, I called up a friend of mine, and I just said, "Hey, man, I just need a few minutes." And and he was like, "Sure, shoot." And I just kind of unloaded a little bit on him, and you know, because sometimes what's dark to you is not dark to the entire greater picture, and that's what I had to that's what I had to learn tonight.
Well, you know, you have a bunch of supportive people around you all the time, but I understand that feeling of working on something hard or having being hit on multiple fronts and just not reaching out. But when we were in Nevada last year, one of the people that I really liked that I never got a chance to tell you about was I really liked Merle.
Yes. That man wears his heart on his sleeve.
I got a really good feeling from Merle. You know, and I didn't get a chance to talk to him much or whatever, but I really think that he's a cool guy.
He actually was asking if you were coming to Vegas this year because he wanted to chat with you.
Oh, well, we have to make that happen. Maybe when I'm coming up through Canada.
You know what? If you make the drive from Montana home, because you're going to drive by my place.
I will.
I want to take you to Flight 21.
Okay, cool. And I have to tell you about when I drove up north one time up through Edmonton, what happened.
Hold on, did you say Edmonton?
I did.
Yeah, baby.
Represent, brother.
Yeah, baby.
Yeah. It's an older story, but I want to tell you about it. It was long before my encounter or whatever, but I was in Edmonton and a friend of mine, his name is Gino. He runs like a scrap metal business. He took me to this biker bar. He's like, Court, you got to come to the biker bar. And all those guys at the biker bar, all they wanted to talk about was aliens. And I was like, okay, you guys want to talk about aliens? I had never been in a group that talked about aliens before. And my first actual ever being exposed to that was in Edmonton.
That's awesome.
With the bike.
You know, Dirty Filth lives in Edmonton.
That's what he was telling me. So I didn't get a chance to tell him about what all happened. But they told me stories. They told me stories way back then before I ever had my encounter about lights and stuff. And I was like, wow, Edmonton's got some weird, really interesting elements hanging out.
It is. It is. I haven't been. Last time I was in Edmonton was 1987.
Wow.
And a major. I was 13 years old with my dad and my cousin just north of the city, and a major tornado came through, and we didn't see the tornado, we watched the storm come in, and literally off in the distance we were watching these lightning bolts hit the ground, and all of a sudden you'd see the fires start coming up. And
Wow.
and so we parked. My dad had and my cousin had golf carts that they had rented. It was right by the parking lot, and there was this giant gazebo that was right by the parking lot, and it's just torrential rain coming down. So we pulled the golf carts in there, and all of a sudden, about 150 yards away, this lightning bolt comes over top and nails this tree about 150 yards away. And my dad's like, "That's it, we're out of here." And that was the first time I actually ever heard the emergency broadcast system. And we were going in the one direction, and the tornado was like 3 miles ahead of us. Long story short, because we got to get going, but I actually jumped out of the car twice because the hailstones were the size of baseballs.
Oh, man.
Yeah, they would have killed somebody. Hold on. Thank you, Area 53, Pam, Georgie, and Shelley, for the super chats. Here we go. Here we go with the second half hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you for joining us. Courtney Marchesani is our guest. We're going to get into the Wall Street Journal story here momentarily about the new UFO conspiracy. All right, want to remind all of you that if you miss portions of this show or others, you can check out our free archives on YouTube or any major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Let's go to Courtney Marchesani, researcher, author, experiencer of all things UFO. She is dogged when she's on the trail of a story. She's like a hound dog with one of them great noses for what is truly going on in the UFO world, and that is said with all love and respect. Courtney, thank you for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me back. Let's do it. Let's jump in.
All right. There's a new UFO conspiracy that came out through the Wall Street Journal and Stephen Greenstreet's New York Post about the fact that UFO stories have been used for years and hazing has been used for years to secretly test human technology, whether it's the B-1 bomber, the B-2 bomber, the F-117 stealth fighter, okay, and that they were using UFO stories and telling high-ranking officials up to generals that this is what it is. It's aliens. It's UFOs. And if you go and tell anybody, you will be executed. What do you think about this new conspiracy?
I think that it really does play into or feed into what we saw with Roswell. It's a classic thing, and all of us know it. We all talk about it. Even the general public is like, "Oh, that's just the cover story for our, our advanced tech and defense against Korea, North Korea, China, and Russia." I mean, those are the triad that you always hear that we're trying to stay, ahead of. But when people talk about UFOs, the real legitimate people who have had experience in classified programs, they say there's some part of this we have no idea what it is, and I think that those reports are legitimate. But I think the Wall Street Journal article coming out with the hazing and trying to discredit the Malmstrom Air Force, which is right here in Montana. It's north of where I am right now. I've driven by it and stopped. It's patently ridiculous that their line of inquiry into the story, they're saying that they brought out an EMP weapon. When you go and look at the old manuals of EMP weapons, it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't line up. And I'm not surprised that they're doing this. I was very surprised that they're admitting hazing rituals and that they use fake NDAs against our own military service members. That's a travesty.
It is. And the fact that they were threatening death, you know, that's enough to put, you know, the fear of anybody. I mean, never mind your own country murdering you, but what happens to your family as well? I mean, and it was all a ruse. Like that is just.
Yeah. And don't you think that goes into even the contemporary modern time right now? Because you've got, at the age of disclosure, Lou Elizondo said on camera that things were heating up in his, you know, investigations and everything, and being at ATIP, and he had to work with Jay Stratton as a way to get out of his position and to continue working on the mission, which was to get the information out about UFOs to the American public. Don't you think right now, because in that same movie, he claimed that he got a call from somebody high up that said, there is a hit that's been put out on you and David Grush. And, you know, we can still do that, which was kind of him, Lou, in that interview saying that it was Title 10 or Title 50 type protections of the legacy program. So knowing those statements, knowing those very public facing things that he has said as someone who's come out from the government himself that has been threatened, and David Grush, what do you think about that? Do you think that those things that were used against them were the fake?
It could have been. I mean, everything's on the table right now. I mean, if you look at Grush with the threats that were made against him, his family, even his dogs, okay? Like, it was unconscionable what he had to go through. Now, was it true? Were they really going to act it out? We really don't know. But it's scary to think, that's for sure. Because I think a lot of people in the end, Courtney, we talk about this story, and I'm going to equate it to athletes because I'm a sports guy. Okay?
I'm with you.
Okay, on your favorite team, whether it's football, baseball, hockey, basketball, doesn't matter. Okay? You're always thinking, man, my team should trade for that person. You know, we need that great person, that new quarterback or whatever it may be. But we tend to forget, as we talk about these topics or we talk about our favorite sports team, that there are real lives at stake. There's real humanity at stake. It's not just saying, hey, I want to try and acquire Patrick Mahomes from the Kansas City Chiefs and bring him to Seattle or Las Vegas or wherever. There's family involved. There's children in schools. There's, you know, your friends, your locations, what you've known your whole life, you know. And we forget that about the UFO world, that as much as you may not like or agree with Lou Elizondo or David Grush or Science Bob or Courtney Marchesani or whoever it may be, there is a human behind that you know nothing about. And we don't know what they're going through. We don't know what's truly happening within their heads. And you can say someone is strong. You can say someone is, you know, they can take it. But for most people, they can only take so much. And that's where I worried about Grush.
He's not invincible.
Nobody is.
He's human. And so even with the level of clearance that he had and the inside access that he had and even with the executive branch, you know, when Lou said that at the age of disclosure, that he got that call, you know, and it was serious. And it was like, we can take you guys out right now. We could be sanctioned to do that. You know, you have to take that seriously. Lou didn't say who it was in the interview, but it stood out to me because I hadn't heard it before in such a way. And I did feel an incredible amount of compassion for him when he told his story through the age of disclosure. So, yeah, they're not invincible. And their families, by extension, right, suffer great costs as well. And they don't ask for that when they marry that person or when they come in their lives, and their children as well. And so that's the part of this why I really like you, Dave. Why I think you stand out to a great degree in all of this morass that happens, and mudslinging and hatefulness and backbiting, because you don't go there. I was thinking about that tonight before I was coming on. You don't go there. And that's one of the reasons why I like you and I like coming on your program. There's no hatred, there's no vitriol in that way. You examine the issues, you're skeptical. I think that's totally appropriate. You need to be skeptical, especially when you have something like this coming out from one of the major publications that is going to get read by people who don't even have UFO knowledge or experience. And this is maybe the first article they're ever going to read.
Well, and I appreciate the compliments, so thank you very much for that. I'm just trying to do a job and get the information out. Yes, I have certain topics that I am passionate about. When, like last night with Science Bob, I get passionate about when I see unfairness happening within the community, when I see something unjust. And I guess the ego says, I'm tired of telling our audience I told you so.
I know. I was stacking up all the things we've been talking about just since I've come on, and plus all the things you've been talking about before, and rattling, the bells on to make people be aware. And, a lot of people are like, oh, no, Peter Thiel is not involved in UFOs. And it's like, oh, but yeah, he is. He stood up a company and he put people in leadership, a long time ago, and actually did it very, very orchestratedly. And now that's coming out and everybody's examining it. And so it's interesting because I think sometimes when you're way ahead like that and you're seeing the trends, or you're examining things or corruption, that you see happening, sometimes it takes years for people to see it. And that's difficult, but it's the way it is. So you have to point that out. You have to remind people, yeah, we were on this, and this, because they don't know. It was like I was telling you about the Jason story and people just losing track of how that whole stream of information came about. You have to inform people and remind them of the history and the facts and the work that you did on things.
The one thing that I have learned through this is you have to expand who you talk to and who you know. And if you're in a position like you are or I am, this is why going to conferences and these seminars and symposiums are important, because you're not worried about what people are speaking about. You're more concerned about building those contacts and building everything. Like, I'll give you an example. In San Francisco for UFO Con, there was one person there, I'm not going to mention their name. He thought I was a complete jerk, and had heard that, that I was a little bit of a jerk about things. And I would use the A word, but I'm on terrestrial radio. But him and I sat down, and after about, because sometimes in conferences you meet with certain people 2, 3, 4 times that weekend, whether it's for lunch, whether it's for a beer, whether it's for whatever it may be. And after about the second or third conversation that we hung out with each other, he was like, I had you pegged all wrong, man. He goes, you really do kind of know what's going on. You really do make sense. And, he goes, I'm glad I got to know you for myself. Now, I'm not trying to pat myself on the back here, but I think because we have such a public persona that people forget that there is a human behind the canvas that you're seeing on TV. And trust me, this is very much not a painting of exemplary composure here. But yes, I will say this. You need to be able to take it to that different level. And for people wondering, how I've been able to stay a little bit ahead of the game, it's just paying attention. A lot of times it's not even getting the information from everybody, but it's taking everybody's information that they put out there and then reviewing the past to read between the lines. If you read between the lines, it tells a story. And if you can figure that story out, now you have a pretty good lead on where this story is going. And that's how, for the most part, how it's been done. There's my secret.
Oh, and I think that is 100%. When you have an onslaught of information coming at you, no matter how much you're paying attention to it in front of you and trying to focus on that, when you step away from it and you come back, you get something new. And I love that. That's the part of this whole enigma and puzzle piecing things together that I love, that I'll find something new and I'll just know it's right. And it's like, it's the moment that you wait for where the light bulb goes on and you're like, this connects. People aren't going to believe it, but that's okay. I know it's going to reveal itself. And I want to say something else before you move on, because it's pertinent to what you're saying. I was thinking about this today too, because I got some criticism recently, which is like, fine, whatever. But when you are attacked, okay, as much as you get attacked, and SOR does get attacked, and you've been attacked, I've been attacked. People don't know who we are. They make judgments. But somebody said something today about narcissism, right? And how it's very narcissistic in the field. Well, I want to give an opposing view to people who are looking at social media and people who potentially talk about themselves because they don't necessarily want to talk about other people. So that's one of the things that I wanted to draw attention to. Like, sometimes you and we have to talk about ourselves or our projection or what we're doing, which might appear a little bit narcissistic. But the real reason why is because you've learned, and I've learned, that you can't go out there and really shine a spotlight on somebody else without a terrible amount of fallout coming on you. So you have to be really careful. So sometimes you have to focus on yourself, which you don't want to, because you don't want to have fallout with other people or their horde of their supporters coming after you and making your life more difficult.
And that's really the big one, because a lot of these stories, whether it's the Wall Street Journal, whether it's Enigma Labs, whether it's David Grush or Lou Elizondo or Gary Nolan or whoever it is, Skywatcher now, there are people pulling everybody in all directions. And no matter what you do, 50% of the people will say you go, and somehow 90% of the other people will say, even though there's only 50, I know my math. I do know my math. Okay? I'm just trying to make fun here. But the other half will say, yeah, you're an idiot for supporting that. You're stupid for even reporting on it. I got it on X about posting, saying I thought Stephen Greenstreet, and you know me, I haven't really got along with a lot of what Stephen Greenstreet writes, because I think he's very meticulous with his what seems to be a hatred for this subject.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I know others who will disagree with that. But his article that he did, and his interview he did with Tim Phillips, I thought was exemplary.
Tim Phillips is on the record saying that the most interesting thing that he has ever seen is the black triangles. Stephen Greenstreet says, what are you using to see those? What's your avenues of seeing those? At video, reports? He said all the above. And even though Tim Phillips has come out and acted totally unethical as a former government official of Arrow, Greenstreet having him on the record saying that is valuable. Now, some people would they'll categorically deny Phillips because he came out against Grush. He came out and said these people aren't trusted or should be, or their testimony should be, discarded. I do think that throwing shade on federal whistleblowers is obviously not a good look as a former employee. But the fact that he went on Greenstreet and New York Post and said these statements is, it's more information in the field.
It is. And I think with that story coming out and with Tim Phillips, to me, Tim Phillips needs to be a part of any type of congressional hearing moving forward. He needs to sit in front of Congress on the record, sworn in, saying what he knows about what he said with Green Street.
He should, and so should Kirkpatrick. I mean, so should Hal Puthoff. I mean, all these guys should have had. I mean, that's the true failure of our process, our democratic process, and civics in the U.S. around UFOs, because it's been so. It's just been so mismanaged, and even now at this juncture, I think we're at a real inflection point.
Yeah. We got 4.5 minutes before we have to go to break at the top of the hour. Courtney Marchesani is our guest tonight. The Wall Street Journal, New York Post articles about the latest conspiracy theory in UFOs and hazing going on about fake UFO stories. The one thing I would say about this, Courtney, and I wanted to get your thoughts on this, to me, this is only half the story. It tells that this story was going on. And I think it's extremely pertinent that we find out that this story of the cover-up of jet fighters that went into military service and test flights of craft we'll never know about being misconstrued purposely as UFOs. There is another side to this, and that is, where are the UFOs? And I think we would be remiss if we didn't remind ourselves that this is something very important, because it's only half the story.
You have Peter Thiel, Lou Elizondo in a high-level meeting in 2023 talking about a craft that we have. I mean, that's been discussed and verified by multiple sources. So it's not just a prevailing theory that we have one. You have people in high-level meetings talking about where it is and its location. And in Age of Disclosure, you also had Jay Stratton say he reported the addresses. He reported the address. Now, he didn't say what he reported. He didn't say where he reported them to, but it's obvious that there's footprints all over this, that they've been trying to figure out where they are or getting them out. The Lockheed transfer. There's another interesting line of research in back engineered tech from a craft. So this has all been documented and reported to Congress. And what's been done?
Do you feel then, like many in the public, that the truth is harder to accept than the false realities that are being out there?
I do think that, sure. I think that works both ways. For the UFO knots, the UFO nautical people, they have, all these different things that they believe that are true, and fighting against, the hypocrisy that's going on in the 80-year cover-up. But in that amalgamation, some part of that is U.S. tech. You and I have talked about that before, drones and UAPs and what those are versus UFOs and that whole obfuscation around all that. Now we're talking about drones over Langley and other places in England and, different bases over in the UK. So I think that it works both ways. It works on the UFO side and it works on the skeptic side. And you have to understand those dynamics. That's the way to be the best researcher you can anyway.
Okay, and for a lot of people, they're figuring, where do you start with that? How do you even get to that point?
I think that you have to go with the area that you're interested in first and foremost and just become an expert on that. And then you go wider. So stay narrow and then go wider in it. And then in UFOs, it all tends to connect. Timelines, decades, different regions, different contractors, especially in the U.S. You can go and clearly track all of the U.S. contractors and where they built their facilities in California and then moved to the desert in Area 51. And so you just have to track the timeline. Some people are interested in that. There's a nuts and bolts crowd that are very interested in stealth tech, stealth technology, all the different aerospace stuff that came out from it. And then there's, you know, the other side that are the more spiritual experiencer type communities. And so there's middle ground there, but focus on what's interesting to you, obviously, where your passion is.
That is the key. That is the big key right there, is trying to figure out what is important to you and have focus with it. Have focus and stick with it. Like me, I'm about the experiencer, man. You know, I don't have the scientific brain to try and break down propulsion and anti-gravitics and free energy. Those are just big words that I use to make myself look smart, to be blunt. But I look damn good in my Edmonton Oilers uniform. That's
yeah, you
what
do.
I'll say. All right. Spaced Out Radio continues with Courtney Marchesani for the next hour. Stay tuned.
This is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
I'll be back.
Me too. Dirty Filth, it's all on you, buddy. Don't forget to turn your mic on, and don't forget to bring a towel.
Don't forget to bring why would I wash myself off, Dave?
Look, Tally told us years ago on South Park, you should always have a towel with you, so don't forget to bring a towel. You never know when you're going to need one.
I don't bring towels, but I if anybody ever hangs out with me in real life, know that I always have, well, paper towels and junk. They're not quite regular towels, but it was somehow Dave and Courtney have adjusted time and space so that now here I am at the very end of my drawing, struggling mightily to figure out what the next artist or the next cartoon I'm going to do is. Talking about all this weirdness. Anyway, before we do that, nobody's talking about, I'm going to butcher this here, everybody. The, and I hate to say it, it's the Boogosphere in Colombia. So, hello, Linda. Nonetheless, though, here's my art. The picture that I got from the guy, originally CIA guy on the ground at that point in time. He took this picture. This is the most accurate picture, and I've just basically, what I do with these drawings that look like Polaroids, quote unquote, or I shouldn't say Polaroids because it's an instant camera picture, because my guys on the ground, that's what they do. They take a picture, specialized cameras, and then they send it to me, and I draw a cartoon of it, and then I distribute it to you know, fake news and all that stuff, and unauthorized artwork. But I mean, I've got all the credentials right there. I mean, look at the numbers. CIEFLA 86155, so on and so forth. But it was an interesting picture. Nobody seems to be talking about these spheres that are falling around in Colombia. Like, I mean, I've been thinking about them the last couple of days. And the biggest thing about them is apparently they can dump water on them and it steams, but everybody can touch them. And I'm not really sold on it so far, but these are the pictures that I got. This is the first one of multiple. There was another one that apparently showed up. They had like weird, they had some weird, how should I say it, X-rays or whatever the scientists do. I'm not really paid to do that kind of stuff. But apparently they had some weird insides, and we finished the old drawing here, the old signature filth. What's the date today? Bloody hells. It's not quite the 13th. It's the 12th. But tomorrow is the 13th. That's my day. 13 is the best number. Anyway. Scribble. The Boogosphere in Colombia. There's a whole bunch of them. How come these things aren't landing in North America? Nobody knows. I think perhaps there's a lot of chaos happening in the world. and maybe they're just dropping out to other places. But I mean, South America has always been weird. There's always been UFO sightings in Peru and everything. They got all those weird petroglyphs and whatnot. And then you have the face peelers. Where else in the world have had face peeling aliens? I think it was Peru with the face peelers. I couldn't even remember that. It's like Le Cabre Le Face Peelery or something. I'm not even sure at this point in time, but nonetheless, this cartoon is the I get the picture to my side here. I can never show you guys this stuff. I got like a mountain of classified information that I can't show people, and I'm authorized to draw the cartoon side of it, much like that old UFO drawing or the old UFO alien autopsy, to say massacre, but they autopsied some aliens. They made a video of it. If you were alive in 1995 or something, they showed you it. Everyone was like, it's hogwash. But it wasn't hogwash because it was based off an actual UFO alien autopsy from 1967. Apparently. I think it was 1967. So, here we are. Anyways, most importantly, every Saturday, 2 p.m. Pacific, you can join me to watch me draw cartoons on Spaced Out Radio. 2 p.m. Pacific. And there will be cartoons, and there will be some probably cats. And this coming Saturday, we'll be talking about some of the plushies that have entered the entire universe of my cartoons. So you may be able to get yourself a plushie, and you may also be able to get yourself original artwork. Nonetheless, join us Saturday. 2 p.m. Pacific. Very important.
Hello.
Also,
Courtney.
hello, Dave. I've got cats running around like a bunch of dickheads here.
All right,
They're
we
out
got
of
10
control.
seconds. Thank you to Necessary Dialogue, Shelley, Georgie, Pam, and Area 53 for the super chats. Greatly appreciate the love. Here we go, everyone. And hour number 2 coming at you right now on Spaced Out Radio. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you for joining us as we have Courtney Marchesani in with the latest and greatest UFO news going on in North America today. Hi to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. What is it? Equiparate. Equiparate is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Here's Courtney Marchesani hanging out with us, telling us all the latest and greatest UFO news. And Courtney, there's a lot of debate right now whether or not new hearings are going to be coming around the corner. And I don't know about you, I'm not a fan of them. I think that they really haven't delivered the impact punch that we want, but I'm not believing that Congress is doing the wrong thing here. I'm thinking they're choosing the wrong witnesses. So I'm going to ask you this question. I asked it a week ago, and I'm going to ask you, if you were to build, because I think the only way this story comes out is if we have some sort of independent panel. If you were to build the Courtney Marchesani independent panel, what would you do? Who would you put on there?
I have already taken my proposal to Danny Sheehan on multiple occasions and tried to wedge myself with my foot in the door technique to establish what I think is needed. And it would be an interagency council. Okay. And the reason why I'm proposing an interagency council on UAPs is because I used to work in mental health for a very large grant. It's called the McKinney-Vento Homeless Assistance Grant, and it was approved through bipartisanship, but under a Republican administration. And they set up a interagency council on homelessness because the problem was so pervasive, so wide. It was throughout, all through the 70s and 80s, homelessness was increasing. So I see a similar thing. I see a similar systematic and systemic, institutional systemic blockade between these various different groups in the government. And so if people are talking about hearings and government side of it, a lot of people don't really understand how the government works. But if we were to have some kind of effective agency set up, it would have to be an interagency council on UAPs that would include all the different parts of the military, all the different agencies in the intelligence community, plus all the different people and all the different committees in Congress and all the different parts of our government working together.
If you were to pick names from the UFO community that should be on there, who would you pick?
I think you'd have to have high-level generals, right? People from defense, because they're seeing a lot of the military applications. And you'd also have to have contractors from the regular, just the regular classified side of things. But also it would be really nice to have legacy program. There's all this speculation about the legacy program and where it's been hidden. So you'd want to have experts. Those would be older people who have had high-level access to Title 10 and Title 50 programs that could help. So I'm not going to name names, but I think that you can suss that out for yourself. One of the people who I was a big fan of was Leon Panetta. Leon Panetta was one of the people that Danny Sheehan named to come in and be on that presidential council that got just basically wiped away when the NDAA didn't go through as they had written it. But I thought that Leon Panetta would have been a great representative.
I would like to see more independent people in there. If I were to, and a couple of the names that I threw around, whether people like them or not, I thought that somebody like Danny Sheehan should be on there. I thought Dr. Michael P. Masters would make a good independent person. Richard Dolan would make a good independent person, and a number of others along those lines where they don't have that government affiliation where that they could keep the secrets. If they really truly wanted to get this out, they would look at allowing an independent review board to go in there and see what's truly there.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Michael Masters. I just read his paper last week to prepare for our last, our last show. But I think people should try to access that right now if it's still free. I was able to get a free copy of it and download it and read the whole thing. And he's proposing, and there's a Harvard academic on there too. Ronnie Vernay from down in Brazil is on there as well. And it's a well-written journal article for people to basically use a matrix, a certain type of matrix with one side of the axis as what's observable and the other side is what is experienced. And so I see what they're trying to do. I would encourage everybody to read that article. For people like us that have been in the field for a long time, it's common sense. It's a no-brainer. But I do see what they're trying to do as a way to provide one aspect of like a systemized approach. And I think that's what's happening right now in research and academia. You see the US, but also the EU now working cross-collaboratively to take these different papers and research and to try to develop some continuity. And that means papers for literature reviews that have already been written and historical things to try to get a database for that. Beatrice Villarreal, she said that she wanted to start heading that up from the EU perspective. You have US people who are all doing new research. And so I think you're seeing a huge wave of people like Michael Masters who are involved in that. So you would have to have somebody from academia who is looking at all that emerging research, but also has all the historical research as well to represent if they were going to be in something like an interagency council or on another task force. Right now with the task force that's happening in the House, you're seeing what they're grappling with. They just got a 6-month extension on their secret, UAP task force. And you just wonder, like the hearings, if time is going to run out on them. They have David Grush as an asset working out of Burleson's office to try to go to the right places so they don't lose time or effort or efficiency, and they're maximizing his knowledge, I think, to get into these very specific places to get information, but that doesn't mean they're going to get it.
There was word that sometime within the next couple of weeks they could have an impromptu hearing again. Don't know if that's going to happen. Nothing has been announced. Do you think they're just going to put it up there?
I don't think they're going to put it up there. I don't think they're going to put the past has shown for every hearing that they don't put it up there. They don't put it on the calendar. It's not scheduled. It's a real problem for people who want to travel there. I live in Alaska primarily, and I'd like to go to the hearings if I can, but it's not cost effective. And so you have this like window of time where you can book travel and other things. And so it really is limited, and they don't usually put it on the calendar. I mean, we saw that with the hearing last year in the fall. They had called witnesses in the summer and said, can you be there for this? And then when they finally put it on the calendar, because it was in flux, some people couldn't be there. Some people couldn't, they had travel. Like Chris Mellon said, he had travel set up, so he couldn't be there and to attend, which would have been a landmark thing if Chris Mellon would have been able to testify at the hearing. So I don't think they'll put it on the calendar. They haven't.
Right. If you were to choose next who to testify, who would you go with?
I think that Sean Kilpatrick should testify. He was a government servant, leadership, setting up a brand new office, right? He was picked because he had set up many other things in the past, and that's why he said he was chosen for Arrow. He worked in that office. They produced reports. They did long reports on all the witness testimonies and their rebuttals as to why they weren't taken seriously and the actual number of anomalous objects. He has been so truculent with the media around his role, and he comes out and only speaks to certain people, and then he says only certain things. So I think he should be called into Congress for an actual testimony under law.
I would like to see a change in a lot of these people, because we're seeing a lot of the names who really haven't said much before under congressional oath being bandied about again, whether it's David Grush, whether it's Lou Elizondo and others. What more do they have to give that you think that they could give? Because I'm like you. I would like to see Chris Mellon. I'm surprised Mellon hasn't shown up at one of these. I'm surprised his name hasn't been pushed forward. I would like to see, obviously, Tim Phillips now. I don't think we need any more Tim Gallaudet. I don't think we need any Mike Golds. Who would you cross off that list?
Well, I think when I'm saying Sean Kirkpatrick, it's because of the accountability side of taxpayer dollars and what that office, produced and how it produced it, and the things that were happening on the back end that not many people heard about, which they had with Arrow taken off all the documents, they took out all the testimony, and then they set up this back end of an Arrow server where they had all the witness testimony from the whistleblowers, everybody who had submitted, and then they had their rebuttals on each witness. But it was only on the back end for certain people who had access to see it. And the other part of Arrow is who were the volunteers, who were the people that they had in that office. So I'm looking at it from an accountability standpoint. of government funding being spent. And yeah, Tim Phillips would fall in that too, because he was the interim director. So when you're talking about these other witnesses that are coming, I'm kind of putting them in another basket, just to let you know how I'm thinking about it.
Courtney Marchesani is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. Now, Courtney, as we go down the list of what is truly happening, what do you see coming up in the UFO world? Because, we see Skywatcher, they're planning apparently something big for later this summer. We hear a lot of people talking about other groups that are forming. You mentioned a bunch of new podcasts that are coming out. Is there any one gem of a story that's coming out that you hear or maybe coming out in the next little bit?
No, but I'm just going to say that I think the Russian influence is going to come up into more prominence into the research, because they keep coming up in these various lines of research around us and our advantages, and trying to keep our advantages, close to the vest with all our advanced technology. And I think that the next big story will probably become something about the Russian influence.
Explain that a little bit, if you don't mind.
I just think that there is this whole thing, and all the stories where you're hearing, even in the age of disclosure, when you have Eric Davis and you have Gary Nolan and Travis Taylor saying that the U.S. has advanced technology. It's what you're talking about when they're talking about these fake NDAs that they had service members sign because it was advanced technology that they were hiding. It's also in Matthew Brown's story, where he's talking about this black triangle where the Russians came out and seemingly knew that there was something going to arrive. And then there was intelligence that they had, like a robotic drone or something in the water that saw the triangle arrive above the Russian craft. So that's where I'm going with it.
Mm-hmm.
You can see it coming up. You can see it coming up and emerging, in an age of disclosure. They hit the nail on the head a couple times when they're talking about breakthrough technologies, and that we have a responsibility to share for humanity what we've learned about reality and advanced propulsion. But because of the Russians, we have to be very careful, and it's a sobering look because of how they'll use that tactical advantage against us militarily.
So that tells me that Russia has, I could look at this two ways. Let me focus here for a second. I could look at it that they're obviously looking this as an adversarial way to hold on to the technology and keep it silent. Or maybe on reading between the lines, that they are maybe wanting to work with the Russians because the more they know about each other's UFO programs and UFO stories, they might be able to find correlations as to what's happening.
When you look historically, we had essentially done denuclearization, and they set up a partnership agreement with Russia to notify one another about potential UFOs as a way to prevent conflict or nuclear arms being used. In David Grush's first witness testimony at the hearing, he talked about flag intelligence that came through that he found, that we communicated with Russia around UAPs, and that he found that flag intelligence and reported it because it showed that there was true UAP activity, and the Russians and the US worked together to prevent and de-escalate any type of nuclear conflict. Now, we've seen some of that being dismantled in terms of the nuclear agreement. And so I think that's why I'm predicting, I think it's going to be the next thing. I'm not saying that the Russian influence is on our technology. I'm saying the Russian influence in their sphere with their own knowledge of UAP technology and our diplomacy or lack of it with them. That's what I think will be the next.
Really? Okay. Experiencers, I want to go back to something Science Bob said last night, and he really believes that there is going to be a big push to push experiencers out of the way here coming up. Whether it's with Skywatcher, whether it's with a lot of these different scientific groups that are out there. Do you see that happening?
Bob said exactly what? That he felt that
Well,
experiencers were going to
talked about
get pushed out of the way?
Yeah, well, he felt that experiencers are going to continue to feel the push to get out of the way. Now, he didn't agree with it, okay? He was just stating, that he sees that happening.
Okay, here's what I think. I think that the focus on experiencers will become very focused on the individuals who are able to use transcendental practices, meditation, different types of synchronization with UAP. The rest of the experiencers, okay, in that field, including abductees, people who have had close encounters, all the ranges of spiritual phenomenon, psychedelic phenomenon. Yeah, I don't think they're going to become front and center. No, I agree with him on that.
So do you think then that we're going to be actually pushing the experiencers and making ufology again while the UAPers go and do their thing?
I think the experiencers, a lot of them are talking right now about this new wave of focus on investigations of experiencer stories, kind of a truth, fact, fiction, or false genre of entertainment is coming about, but there are also real investigative special investigations that are coming out that are being called criminal forensic investigations on experiencer accounts. And so I think that the alarming part of that will get to experiencers immediately through the pipeline will be to not to touch it with a 10-foot pole. And so I think it will seed mistrust initially if people don't know what the agenda is. And I think that could be one of the things that tips it over the edge and widens a divide where experiencers are just not going to want to come out if that's the case. And these kind of things get adopted and used against experiencers.
That tells me, just by listening, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that tells me that there is this big divide between the science and the experience is going to continue to have a lot of roadblocks coming up.
Yeah, well, there is certainly research that is in the pipeline to be done on experiencers, interface, and encounters with NHI as it can be proven. But then there's a whole bunch of other people in leadership in the field who may have been willing to entertain, research and dealing with stories and all that comes with experiencers, which can be a huge mess. And I think that they're backing away from the field. Leadership is. So I think that's part of it. Some parts will be focused on what can be proven scientifically. Right. And then the stories and all of that, people will distance themselves from it in leadership, yes.
We may have to carry this next topic into the next half hour we have with you, as we only got about 2 minutes to go before we go to break. But is ufology dying?
Yeah, I definitely think that the old guard and what ufology used to be is dying on the vine. But a new generation of ufologists is coming about, but it's different. It's just different.
Okay, what's the big change? Is it age? Is it new interest? Is it the 2017 club? What do you think it is?
I think it has a lot to do with stories that were cast into doubt through different reporting that's come about recently, and the scandals that have surrounded some of those stories and their legitimacy. So I think that's put one nail in the coffin. I think that the old guard is dying out. Unfortunately, we're losing a generation of individuals that were involved directly with Project Blue Book and the Condon Report and all of that, who have that history and knowledge. And I think they've left legacies behind to keep their work intact. But I think that because of what we've just seen with the Wall Street Journal and this wave now of anti-UFO reporting, and what it really is, which is a farce, that's going to put us back into when the 80s had the aviary and everything was just so confusing and so much obfuscation and disinformation. I think we're going to go to a new level of that, and it's going to be really hard for people to suss it out who are not ufologists.
That's very interesting. I want to continue this conversation after the break because I think for a lot of people, they don't see a lot of the great divide between the people who are having true experiences and the people who are trying to have a scientific breakthrough. I think I'm not saying it's dangerous, but I'm saying it's two different major focal points of one incredible topic. And one obviously doesn't like the other because one is unprovable.
Right.
And that is the experiential fact. Courtney, I'm going to get you to hold on right there. We are going to go to break here at the bottom of the hour. We got Courtney Marchesani continuing with us next.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with your host, Dave Scott.
How much time
Fantastic
do I have,
stuff.
Dave?
Pardon me? You got 5 minutes.
Okay.
Give me 2 seconds, people. If I'm looking at like I'm staring into the abyss right now, I'm just preparing the weird news of the week here. There we go. That's a good set of stories. Hey, Polly Rotterman, you stay safe over there, okay? I know crap's starting to hit the fan there, so make sure you're safe, okay? Attorney to the EBEs, how are you tonight? 93 degrees in Jersey. Jeff Steve Garvey is here. He'll hit a home run for you. Everybody try and move Courtney's chair. Sweet Robbie G, do us a favor and give that chin hair a tug. Let us know when you've accomplished this feat.
Did I just hear you say Sweet Robbie G was in the house?
Yes, he is.
What's up, Robbie?
He is. Sweets is here and looking good. Real
Sweets.
good.
He does great work. Love his stuff.
Yes, he does. Yes, he does.
Hey, how did the Kevin Day interview go? I haven't had a chance to watch the whole thing.
Oh, Sweet Robbie G got schooled on Kevin Day big time.
I really want to see it. I have that in my watch list. Hey,
poor Robbie was doing a lot of editing after that show because Kevin was dropping F-bombs galore.
Oh, I'm sure he was just on fire. I want to watch it. I want to see what came out of that and take some real careful, good notes.
By the way, you have to hit up little Timmy James. When we were out in the forest last week, he had a brief glimpse of what he thought was a gray.
Get out of town. Really? What happened? Well, you don't have to tell me now. Tell me.
We were on our investigation at our hot spot, and he just saw something out of the corner of his eye. He turned his head, and he saw just a fleeting glimpse of about a 4 to 5 foot being with an old oval-shaped head.
Whoa. Any kind of documentation, film, anything?
We missed it on camera.
Dang it.
He's red hot out there. It's weird watching him because he is red hot. He's getting everything right now.
Very cool. I want to go out with you guys in the field sometime and do some investigations with you. That's what I want to start doing. Yeah, I want to start doing the field work. Just going back to the Kevin Day interview.
We've only got like 5 seconds. I'm sorry, Courtney.
We'll check it later.
Yep. Here we go, everybody. Oh, like 5 seconds now. I apologize. Here comes the second half of Spaced Out Radio. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. I'm a guy who wears a lot of tinfoil because I love bringing the woo to you. And I don't want them aliens to find me. Where's my Faraday cage when I need one? All right, we'll bring Courtney Marchesani in here momentarily. But first, we want to remind all of you that if you missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives on YouTube or any major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com, we have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the Newswire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Is ufology dying? That's the big question with Courtney Marchesani, who believes it is because of the great divide between those who've experienced the extraordinary and those who have more interest in the science and technology behind this. It's a medium many people feel will never cross paths, even though the subjects do. But is ufology dying? That's the big one. And we hearken back to when Lou Elizondo stated back in 2018 in his Medium article that ufology must die. Do you think it started from there, or do you think that that was always the plan when everything became public?
Look, it was always very fringe. You had a couple of, probably a handful of like top level experts. Some had been read in, some had established working groups. There was, the academic side, there was the government side, and then there was the independent researcher side. So it had, a few, like a handful, maybe 10. And now we're seeing a reshaping of that work, but we're also seeing new people coming in. And we're also not having people coming out who are still in. I know that I'm always mentioning Jonathan Gray, that was in the debrief article, but there are people that are still in who took high-level risks to come out and say that, yes, there is a legacy program and that, yes, we do have, the U.S. has back-engineered craft, and stood up and vouched for David Grush. He's still in. He's not out yet. And so I think that it's reshaping, like I said, and I think it's dying on the vine, but it's not dead. So there is hope for ufology. But yeah, I think that the UFOlogy must die is certainly a part of it. It was certainly a strong wave of anti.
Well, that's good. That's good. I mean, and I say good because, at least there's clarification. We have to have some clarification on where this subject lies. Like I can admit, I am more pro-experiencer than I am the scientific side of everything. But I also know that the scientific side of everything is where we can hope to find out a lot of these answers, especially, long time questions like what happened at Roswell? What happened at Shag Harbor? What happened at all of these places, and where did the technology, the craft, maybe even the ET bodies go? And even though I am comfortable with the fact that those pieces of information will never come out, it's still a curiosity to me.
But I think they are, and I think they're shedding new light and clarifying the mythology and bringing facts forward like we've never seen before. That's one of the things that's been very enlightening. When Eric Davis was in this UAP congressional hearing, essentially in the House last month, I think it was last month, he talked about Roswell and giving out the facts, like it being the Corona crash, and so things being misnomer or putting things into a new light. So I think that's the good thing about the whole ufology must die, is that when you go into Congress, you can't lie. And he's basically testifying to the way he interprets this and giving his information. And let's not forget the Wilson Davis documents, where he said the reason why he couldn't speak out about those documents is because there was classified information in the document. So there's also the whole history on the classification and what was really a moratorium or a lack of ability to speak on things that could confirm, from the governmental aspect, what he was involved in, what other people were involved in, that we might see new information come to light that verifies those old things that were always in question and putting them into a new light. And I think that's a good thing. That doesn't discount ufology, but it clears up things that could have been misunderstood.
It does take a lot of the fun out of the story, though.
I know.
Because I really do believe that the days of finding that next big abduction story, whether it's Calvin Parker or the Andreassens or Betty and Barney Hill or Travis Walton, I think those days are done.
But with the Pascagoula incident with the Parkers, one of the things I learned, just shedding the wheat from the chaff, with having new information coming to light, one of the things that I found out that they were related. They were potentially related.
Related how?
Calvin Parker, and they were in the news stories in the papers and everything, they were just written about as they were friends, but it was most likely that they were actually related. That was
like related as in relatives,
father, like his father and son, but the son didn't know it. Yeah,
right.
So then you have two experiencers, father and son, which changes that story and brings that fact, if true, into new investigations and why it was a father and son. And then with Chris Bledsoe, his son was there with him too, remember?
Yes. So you think there's a father-son cooperation with the ETs going on?
I think it's genetic. I think there's definitely a genetic and lineage, yes. So some of those facts and some of that new information will come out and maybe shed new light on abductions. That's what I'm saying.
How does the experiencer, in your opinion, continue to bring their UFO story to the forefront? Do they even bother now? should they even report it? Who do they report it to? Because everything seems to be turned over to the government these days.
Well, that's always been speculated that there have been databases. We know that MUFON was one of the largest databases for a long time, and that those files got transferred over with the Bigelow, project, and that some part of that was, not the experiencer, or if there was abductions account, those people weren't notified of their records. And there was, of course, medical files and information that got transferred over. So I do see that we're going to see, I do believe we'll see a tightening of a belt around the laws, around those kind of exchange of files, especially medical records. But yeah, I think it has to be carefully done. The thing about experiencers is most of them want to get verified. They want there to be, multiple witness, and they want there to be investigations, including sometimes medical procedures or a medical workup. So they usually want to follow up and see what happened to them. I think where it becomes a potential legal issue is when you have the parties involved in it, what their stake in is it, where the records are going to go, how much is the experiencer aware of their rights, what rights do they have. So yeah, I think that's all going to be part of the ongoing legal aspect, and including the medical parts of it. And yeah, it has to be carefully done. And experiencers should take a long, hard look before they get involved with any kind of organization. Know what the organization's doing, know how your records are going to be held, see if there's any kind of informed consent, and then reach out to people who are experts in that and get help and advice.
So much with the UFO world, we don't seem to understand. We don't seem to understand the real political nature behind all of this. A lot of people, getting back to Congress for a second, look at the congressional panelists, of whether it's Tim Burchett, Anna Paulina Luna, Nancy Mace, Lauren Boebert, whoever it may be. They, in our field of UFOs, they look like giant names. But from what I've heard people state, in the bigger spectrum of politics, they're the small fish in the sea. And yet, here they are tackling this giant topic. Do you think that they would have more luck if maybe some of the power Congress people or senators in Washington actually paid attention to what's going on?
I remember when I got a call, it was back in 2023, and it was before the hearing. I got a call from somebody who got wind that Anna Paulina Luna was picked and given permission to be an investigator on the UAP issue in 2023. And I remember thinking, because she had just gotten elected, that she was, a freshman. And I was thinking to myself at this time, this is really interesting that they chose, like a freshman no-name person to investigate this. But as you can see, she's really made a name on those investigations and calling for truth and transparency. I think that when it becomes important is when you see what happened with her media group, when she said that Grush wasn't able to come and attend the SCIF meeting with Lou in Washington, D.C., where a lot of people came and paid, planned, and then she said that he wasn't able to be here. Well, in the back channels, people were saying she never even talked to Grush. They were never even in touch. And yet there is this appearance of a meeting being scheduled and coordinated, and then her media team is saying he couldn't make it for various reasons. And then you have Lou Elizondo's group saying she was misinformed or that was not correct information. And so I think if you have a bigger heavy hitter like you're talking about, it would be much more power applied to it and much more resources, and that's not the case. And so I think we're seeing how that's breaking down.
In the end, does this just become like a sidebar Sunday afternoon newspaper story rather than the hard hitting that it was?
I think so, yeah. And I think some people who took on this issue, Luna maybe included, who thought maybe they could make a name on it. You see journalists all the time, like Anderson Cooper made his name on Katrina, because he was there and he was on and had the best information. And so he got huge after that because he covered Katrina. And I think you can liken it to that. You have people who are not as well known who maybe thought they could make a name on truth and transparency and UAPs to save money, potentially. And that was maybe what they would be known for. But I think that was probably, they didn't realize the huge honking gorilla that they were going to take on. So, yeah, I think in some ways when they see it's not politically advantageous, then it becomes the barbecue side topic. Yeah, that was something I covered for a while.
Mm-hmm. I like the word barbecue you used there.
Yeah, it's from actually Peruvian barbecue is that word.
I would still go for a steak right now. Oh, I could use a good steak. Now you got me hungry. 10 minutes to go with you. I know you always have a topic that you want to get out there to the public. So I'm going to pick your brain here for a moment. And what's picking you? What's something that you feel needs to get out there?
Oh, I think the most damaging thing that's happening right now is the huge social media war, that has taken place of actual UFO talk. The real UFO talk is being dismantled through social media influence. And because people don't know or they're not aware and they're just stepping into this topic, they're being turned off on it immediately because of the acrimony. And it goes beyond acrimony to now there's legal battles happening. So I think that's the most interesting thing. I don't like it, but I think that that's the most interesting topic right now is who's fighting who's fighting who legally in courts, why, and what grounds do they have?
Why do you think there is such acrimony and animosity within the community right now?
I think you have factions of people. I think you have factions of people literally bludgeoning and beating the crap at each other every day. And I think that's what you have to ask. Why? Why the time and investment? Why the availability to be so vicious and intense? Intentions are obviously to take certain people out. Who would move the UFO ball forward. And I'm not going to name names, but it's quite apparent who those factions are. And I wonder who's behind it.
Do you think it's all a shell game?
I think some parts of it are, yes. I think some people who are have established a name for themselves, I think some part of it is a heroic mission. I think some people have messiah complexes. I think some people are just really good people that are just trying to do good work and align with other people. But then I also think that there are other people that are just nefarious, that are just, wanting to create mayhem and havoc and, ruin people's lives. Like you said, there's people behind everything. And there are also lives and families and other things that are involved with this. So I don't play into that.
Do you think then that a lot of these factions are set up in some sort of disinformation campaign? Is that even possible?
Yeah, I do. And here's the reason why. I heard a really great breakdown of the intelligence community and how they're sanctioned to work on the government projects, the Title 50 and the Title 10 stuff, and how that all breaks down in the intelligence community and what they're sanctioned to do. So I do think some part of it is definitely sanctioned to protect what we're talking about. The advanced tech, yes. And so I think it's in that vein, and it's legal, unfortunately.
Are you surprised then that there really hasn't been a lot of lawsuits for defamation, lawsuits for libel, or even I don't even want to think worse? Are you surprised it hasn't gotten to that level yet? I mean, by the sounds of it, we're close, but it just hasn't got to that full level yet.
There have been some. There have been some illegal investigations. There have been some pushbacks, especially for like journalists who are with an organization. There have been some reach outs and legal steps being taken. Then there's people that have no money and no resources who are doing illegal things. And so it's person against person, and it depends on who has the resources. Some people are just very litigious and can use the law to their advantage because they're adept at it, but it requires money, time, and patience, and the law is slow. And you have to build a case, and that takes time. And then you have to prove your case. And so I think that some of it is just the grind of the courts, but there have been some cases that have moved forward, just not a lot. There have been some. So I've been surprised at the number that have come up, and cease and desist letters that have been sent, and actual cases against defamation. But like you said, I think we're on the brink of a much bigger one, and maybe even a class action. I've heard that there's a class action being talked about. It'll be interesting to see who comes on board with that. So I do think that that's going to put a lot of people off as well. Nobody's going to want to step into this domain if they feel like they're going to get legally prosecuted for anything.
Explain the potential class action.
Yeah, well, there was rumors that because of certain people being involved with former government officials and promises made about money and not guarantees, but that people had gotten involved, that there was a potential pattern between these various individuals working with an ex-government official, and they were all lining up their various cases together. But I haven't heard any more about it. It was happening and being talked about for a couple weeks. So I've just been paying attention to it to see if they're going to get any traction.
Is this field infiltrated with misinformation as much as we want our tinfoil hats to believe?
I think that certain people are just misinformed. That just happens easily and automatically because there's so much lack of credibility. And so stories are not scrutinized the way they normally would be because there's a lot of conspiracy. One, it's drawing a lot of conspiracy people. But I think, two, it's easy to be misinformed when people aren't doing proper fact checking. And that's kind of going by the wayside right now with a lot of these new podcasts and things. People just don't know how to vet. But yes, three, I do think there is actual misinformation being fed into the community through certain people who are influencers. There's no doubt. I just don't know what proportion that is. I'm not going to speculate because I don't know how much of it is.
I wonder how that are they being paid to do this, these misinformants, whether they have a YouTube channel or X Spaces or whatever? Are they being paid, or are they being paid with information?
That's what the accusation is right now, that there are actually people who are being paid to sow disinformation into the community. And it's an accusation. I don't have any, knowledge of that, but I think it's interesting that that's what's coming out right now. So it's important to pay attention to it. But I also think, yes, we've talked about this before. It's not just in being paid to be an influencer. It's through the contacts and the networks and the interviews that you get. So information kind of is a currency. The people that the stories that you get, whether you get a whistleblower, whether you have, contacts through multiple groups of whistleblowers and that you get picked to be the journalist to cover the story, that is currency. It's a form of information currency.
Yeah, and it's an expensive currency. It really is.
Well, I'd like to know how much money some of the, influential journalists are making on some of these projects, whether it's an entertainment project or it's a news. But that's the big criticism by the skeptic camp, is that there is this UFO-tainment that is being perceived as factual information in a UFO story, but it's actually entertainment. It's not. It's like more like editorializing someone's story rather than getting verified facts. So it's knowing the difference in those things and those subtleties. And I don't think the general UFO enthusiast is aware of all those things and the dynamics and how they paint a picture.
Well, if you have somebody with a large YouTube channel who, say, gets 3 million views on their latest UFO story, they're making bank off of that.
You'd know more about that than I do. I know there's ways to monetize. I know there's ways to get money through, like the infomercial thing or a certain person coming on and selling a product and they get paid for that. But I don't know how all that cuts and dries into a profit line or a profit margin for them.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm wondering is the information line, and I think that's part of the one that has to be a little bit concerning for the public is the information line that just keeps on going around to the same people, so to speak.
Right. And so that's what was called circular reporting when Sean Kilpatrick and Michael Schellenberger said the same thing, that there was a lot of circular reporting. But that's what, Kirkpatrick said. This is just a bunch of believers who are doing circular reporting and influencing other people. And it's a nothing burger. He should be scrutinized for that.
Courtney Marchesani, everybody. Thank you, Courtney, for an amazing night. Swamp Dweller kicks off hour 3 next, then Tim James, the abbreviated UFO report.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with your host, Dave Scott.
Well,
As per usual, you were amazing.
I dropped a couple bombs. Let's see what happens.
I knew you would.
Couple little special tidbits just for you, Dave, because you're so special
you,
yourself. Call me, okay?
I will call you this weekend, okay?
Yeah, and if you get in that mode where there's dark stuff coming up, always call me, please. I'm always there for you, man.
I know you are.
All right.
Thank you.
I'll see you.
You're special. Thank you.
You are too. I'll talk to you later.
Good night.
Bye, everybody.
Courtney Marchesani, everybody. Love her. Love her. She is just an amazing human being. That's for sure. All right. I'll be right back, everybody. All right. Here we go. We got little Timmy James right here in our gangster hand move there. Try turning your mic on.
I was just hacking my brains out.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Great show, dude.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah, I love
Courtney
it.
is amazing. Big thank you tonight, guys, to Area 53, Pam, Georgie, Shelley, and Necessary Dialogue for the super chats. I apologize I didn't get to any questions tonight. CS, thank you for adding to that. We very much appreciate your love and support of SOR, so thank you. And don't forget you can shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. Why? Because we do not have ugly swag, people. No ugly swag. Here comes hour number 3. Here comes the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. We're glad that you are here talking all the weird, strange stuff with us. Well, you're listening. I'm doing the talking. We got the UFO Report and Swamp Dweller coming up in the next half hour. But first, I want to say hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. It is Equiparate. Equiparate is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam says the password each and every night, right here on Spaced Out Radio. Let's head to the swamp.
Hello and welcome to Spaced Out Radio's Swamp. I'm Swamp Dweller, and tonight I'm going to take you on a mystic journey of the unknown, sharing tales of monsters, legends, and nightmares. Welcome to the Spaced Out Radio Swamp.
A little backstory about myself. I'm a 15-year-old girl, and I've always been shy my whole life because my parents treated me like I was an enemy to them. Anyways, on to the Skinwalker story. This happened when I used to live in California. I and my brother Connor were playing in the backyard of our little house when we hear this scream coming from the woods. A little something about our house. It's a 60s to 70s house, but my father took awful care of it, that the floors in the house was rotting and the back porch was slowly collapsing, like it was very badly taken care of. Anyways, let's get back to the story. I and my brother got curious as to what was making that sound, so, like any other weirdos we investigated the sound. So about 3 minutes of walking, we hear it again, but the scream was much higher pitched and much closer. So my brother Connor makes the biggest mistake of his life. He screams back at it trying to mimic this thing, and the next thing we know is that we see it, and it's charging at us, and we just bolted. We get back to the house and I open the back door. I got my brother inside, and I legit slammed the back door. But after slamming the door, the entire floor under us just collapsed and we both fall into the basement. My father eventually walks into the house after work and starts walking towards the kitchen. And before he steps in, he sees that the floor collapsed and sees us injured. My brother had a broken arm and I was impaled by a metal pipe. Thankfully, we both made a full recovery.
Well, that was a weird story. Thank you, Swamp Dweller, for another great version of a spooky story here on Spaced Out Radio. If you want more just like that, head on over to his YouTube channel, Swamp Dweller. Hit subscribe, ring that bell, and you can choose whatever story you want. Let's go to the UFO report.
That is an interplanetary flying space saucer. You have made me very angry. Very angry indeed.
Little Timmy James, good to have you back in for the abbreviated UFO report. And Courtney was just absolutely amazing, your predecessor.
Yes, she's awesome. I love when Courtney's on.
You must hate it when she's on because you're probably like, well, there goes my job. You know, if you were smart, you would tell me to book her on nights when you're not here.
Nope, I don't care. I just come in afterwards and go, well, we'll just keep on going. The show's still a-rolling. So, no, Courtney, yeah, I love it. It's hard to do anything when she's on because I can't multitask because I want to listen to her. Yeah, so thanks, Dave.
I'm just going to clarify one thing. Paramarv putting up here in the chat room on YouTube. What David Tim just did is a Canadian Sign Language for let's have breakfast for dinner. No, there is never a time for breakfast foods for dinner. That's why they're called breakfast foods. When you wake up in the morning, you eat breakfast.
So what do you call
Waffles
pizza?
are not for dinner.
What do you call
Eggs are not for dinner. All right?
What about
Hash
pizza?
browns are not for dinner.
Pizza. Leftover
Pizza is
lasagna.
universal, like bacon.
Oh.
Pizza is universal. All right? It's like
Okay.
having O positive blood. I'm universal to everybody.
Yes, we both are.
That is very true.
Yes, yes.
Very true. What do you think of the reaction from the alleged potential Bigfoot photo?
I'm open. Like, I think it's great. I like the reaction, and you know what? Like, I think we talked about last night. You know what? It's there for anybody to look at and draw their own opinions. I'm totally open. I want to believe what's there, but you know what? I'm super happy with everybody that's involved with it. And like I say, whether they go, nah, I don't think that's true, or oh yeah, it is. I'm just glad that people are involved, and this is what it was all about. This is what we were trying to do, and that's perfect. And I'm liking the engagement from the people. What can I say? I'm no stigma with it whatsoever. It's perfect.
Yeah, I was going to say the exact same thing as well, is that we want it to be a Sasquatch on this photo, which can be seen in our Spaced Out Radio group on Facebook. It can be seen on my Instagram at Dave Scott SOR and on our Facebook page, Spaced Out Radio. Many of you don't even know we have a Facebook page. And you know why? Let me tell you why. A few years ago, right after my birthday, Facebook was gassing a bunch of conspiracy type of profiles, and I got labeled as such, and I had my profile and our page erased.
Oh,
yeah, we had like 5,000 people in there, man.
wow.
So we've had to rebuild that. So if you go looking for the Spaced Out Radio page, do us a favor, hit subscribe on that one. We'd appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what's going on in the UFO world?
Well, you know,
I know you usually rant on Thursdays, much like I do.
I'm just kind of like, I'm the warm-up act for Dave's main stage when it comes to Thursday nights. But yeah, you know, it seems to the audience, us, everybody that's involved, there seems to be, we get into themes, and I think that that's just a natural progression of things. But, you know, the last little while, it's been this government conspiracy for cover-ups and transparency and blah, 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 back and forth. And, you know, I was like, it started irritating me. So I was like, oh, I got the writing bug again. So again, we're just going to go with that. So I wrote a piece, an op-ed piece, and I named it, it's called Government Transparency or Blatant Deception, the UFO Cover-Up Conundrum. Don't use that word enough, conundrum. So for decades, the question of UFOs, or as they're now primarily rebranded, UAPs, that's to lend an air of sterile legitimacy to it, right, has festered like an open wound in the public psyche. The U.S. government with its labyrinth of agencies and shadowy compartments, have dangled enough bait to keep us hooked while slapping our hands away from the truth. Are we witnessing a masterclass in transparency or a grotesque parade of deception? The evidence, the history, and the infuriating obfuscation suggest the latter. And it's high time we stop swallowing the pablum their feet trying to feed us. Are we the people being spoon-fed a sanitized version of reality, or is the government itself groping in the dark too incompetent to untangle the cosmic mess? Do they really think we're idiots? Yeah. The question isn't whether strange things are soaring through our skies. It's whether the powers that be think the public is too dim-witted to handle the truth. So let's start with the galling reality. The government has admitted, albeit grudgingly, that something is out there. So in 2020, the Pentagon released the 3 grainy videos captured by the Navy pilot showing objects defying known aerodynamics, sparked a fleeting moment of candor. The Department of Defense's 2021 UAP Task Force report followed, admitting 144 cases couldn't be explained. Fast forward to 2025, and Arrow churns out periodic reports that read like bureaucratic fan fiction. Lots of words and 0 answers. So these are not revelations. They're controlled leaks, crumbs tossed to a starving public, while the real feasts stay locked up in the vault or in the fridge. The message is clear. We're looking into it, but we don't ask too many questions. It's a patronizing pat on the head, and as if we're too fragile or too stupid to handle the truth. So the historical record is a festering swamp of lies and misdirection. Declassified documents from Project Blue Book, the Air Force's UFO investigations from 1947 to 1969 reveal a pattern of dismissals and debunkings so aggressive that they border on farce. Roswell, 1947, it was a weather balloon. Kecksburg, 1965, it was a meteor. And the 1980 Rendlesham Forest incident, lights in the sky. These explanations insult our intelligence, yet they persist, recycled by officials who expect us to nod along like obedient school children. The CIA's own files, grudgingly released under Freedom of Information requests, hint at deeper involvement, surveillance, psychological operations, and a cozy relationship with secrecy that smells like a cover-up. Why else would a 1997 CIA study admit to deliberately downplaying UFO sightings to avoid public panic? Was it panic they were trying to avoid, or the awareness that they were trying to avoid? So the whistleblowers are the real gut punch. David Grush, former intelligence officer, testified before Congress in 2023, claiming the government possesses non-human craft and biological remains. His reward? Stonewalling, character smears, and deafening silence from the Pentagon. Bob Lazar, back in 1989, spoke of reverse engineering, alien tech at Area 51. Decades later, his story holds up under scrutiny, yet he's still painted as a crank. These aren't crackpots in tinfoil hats that just crawled out of your mom's basement. They're insiders risking everything to pull back a curtain. The government's response? Deny, deflect, or bury the testimony under mountains of red tape. If there's nothing to hide, why the allergic reaction to the truth tellers? So then there's the science side of it, or the lack thereof. The laws of physics, as we know, don't bend very easily. Objects moving at hypersonic speed, executing impossible maneuvers, and vanishing without a trace aren't drones or weather balloons. They're either cutting edge tech from foreign adversaries or something else entirely. The government's refusal to engage with the scientific community beyond hand-picked insiders reeks of control. Where are the open forums, the peer-reviewed studies, or the raw data? Instead, we get polished briefings and vague assurances that nothing suggests extraterrestrial origins. That's not transparency. It's a script. The public isn't asking for wild speculation. We're demanding honesty. Polls consistently show over 60% of Americans alone believe the government knows more about UFOs than it admits. Yet instead of clarity, we get theater. Congressional hearings fizzle out. Classified briefings stay classified. Arrow, touted as the new era of openness, operates under the Department of Defense's thumb. Its reports so sanitized they could double as bedtime stories. Meanwhile, credible sightings by pilots and radar operators, civilians pile up, mocked or ignored by the same officials who claim to seek the truth. It's gaslighting on a cosmic scale. So the deeper you dig, the uglier it gets. The National Security Act, 1947, which birthed the CIA and the modern secrecy culture, coincided with the dawn of UFO era. Coincidence? I don't think so. The Cold War provided a convenient excuse to shroud everything in national security. But the Soviet Union is gone. The secrecy persists. Why? If these phenomena are terrestrial, why not declassify the tech and flex America's superiority? If they're not, why hide the greatest discovery in human history? The answer lies in power. Knowledge is control, and the government, or whatever unelected cabal pulls the strings, hoards it like a dragon sitting on gold. The most infuriating part, they expect us to buy it. They think we'll accept their half-truths, their "we're still investigating" platitudes, their smug assurances that there's nothing to see here. They underestimate us. The public isn't a monolith of gullible sheep. We're a nation of skeptics, dreamers, and truth seekers. We've seen the videos, read the reports, heard the whistleblowers. We know something's out there, and we know they know. The question isn't whether UFOs exist. It's whether the government thinks it can keep lying to our face. This isn't just about little green men. It's about trust, accountability, and the right to know who or what shares our skies. If the government has nothing to hide, let's see the files, the wreckage, the bodies. If it's all a misunderstanding, prove it. Prove it with the data, not denials. Until then, every evasive briefing, every redacted page, and every whistleblower silence screams one thing: deception. They don't think that we're idiots. They're banking that we are idiots. But the truth is a way of slipping through the cracks, and when it does, the reckoning, it'll be galactic.
That's it. That's all.
That's it. Sorry.
Now, be honest. Did you write that yourself, or did you chat GPT that? Because that was damn good.
I don't know how to use that. I don't know how to use that. I just get on these weird rants, and I become a thesaurus.
No, man, that was actually freaking brilliant.
Excellent. Oh, I'm glad.
Was. It was absolutely brilliant. I think you nailed it right on the head there. You know, that I don't even think people know, the majority of the public. We do in the UFO world, but the majority of the public has no idea how much they are being screwed by defense contractors and the government on this subject.
It's brutal. Absolutely brutal. And the more you read, and the more you research, and the more you study, and the more that you sift through the manure pile, it just keeps going. It just you're hip deep, or we're hip deep and neck deep in it, and it never seems to end, man.
No, it never seems to end. And the interesting part about what you said regarding the cover up and the fact that they don't want to show us what is going on, it really does go to show that this is all a military aspect of everything. You or me, or even our children, our grandchildren, well, maybe our grandchildren will, but they may never see the light of day of what toys that are out there, or what kind of these technologies that have been invented or reverse engineered could help humanity. Imagine if there is something, and it is a big imagination on this, but imagine if there is something sitting, underground at Dulce or Dugway or Area 51, or name the secret base.
Yeah.
That is actually could really help humanity. There's so many areas in North America alone, never mind the world, but in North America alone, that struggle with clean water.
Right.
I mean, we live in the richest continent in the world, man.
Mm-hmm.
There is no reason for anybody on this continent to be having dirty water.
No.
Or poisoned water or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
There's no reason for it.
Not at all.
You know, and if they are sitting on technologies that could improve things like that, shame on them.
Oh, totally. And that's it. Yeah, shame on you. It's appalling. It's absolutely appalling that they would keep things that would benefit humanity, humans, whichever way you want to look at it, under wraps because of money and under this guise of national security. Hey, we've got some technology that we can take any sort of liquid and turn it into clean drinking water for anybody and everybody in the world.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, could you imagine if they have developed technology, even if it's robotic or AI technology, like Elon Musk is allegedly developing, that could make people with spinal cord injuries walk again?
Exactly.
Reconnect the tissues and the important nerves to the brain from the spine that could allow somebody to walk or maybe there's a disease out there, whether it's cancer or spina bifida or whatever it may be, some of these horrific diseases that children are born with. Imagine if there was technologies out there that had the ability to cure those diseases or maybe even extend people's lives rather than putting them in a coma where, you know, some people are in coma not for days or weeks, but for months or years or decades.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I mean, if there is that game changer technology out there, this goes way beyond. And and the feeling I got from your report there is this goes way beyond UFOs and aliens.
Exactly.
There's a point there where we have to start thinking about the benefits to humanity. We're all in this together.
Yeah.
You know, and I think we're all sick of wars. We're all sick of fighting. We're all sick of riots in the streets. We're all sick of you know, putting people in groups and packs, whether it's gender or religion or political affiliation.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, man. You know, I'm tired of it, though.
Yeah.
I am real tired of it.
Yeah.
And the more and more I see the world going on, the more I'm turning off my TV and not paying attention, which is absolutely the wrong thing that any human should be doing right now.
Right.
But if you can't trust the message, why pay attention to it?
Yeah.
It's like a big game being played right now. It's ugly.
No, you're right. You're right. And that's just it. I mean, we can go back and you know, they could solve or they could cure a common cold if they really wanted to now, you know, but there's a lot of money to be made in flu and cold season. So yeah, it baffles me. I don't understand it. And it's so self-centered and selfish and just wrong. Just wrong.
It is wrong, but you know what? It is going to be amazing to see. Hopefully, we get to live. I know at 95 you're pushing it, but I mean, it would be nice to see some of these technologies come out where we could actually see the benefits to humanity.
Agreed.
Right, and it's not just about the billionaires. It's not just about the millionaires or the corporations. There comes a point where humanity does have to take over, and I think for many of us, we've lost that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more.
Do yourself a favor. Say hi to someone. Hold the door open. Stop at a crosswalk. This is Spaced Out Radio. The Dave 101 is next.
This is Spaced Out Radio, and your host, Dave Scott.
All right, buddy, we're clear.
All right, sounds good.
That was good times.
Yeah, no, and thanks for well, not noticing, but I mean, yeah, getting in there, and that's what it was kind of about. That's what I was trying to get. I'm kind of burnt out and tired of it as well, and I thought, you know, this goes much deeper than just, UFOs and saying, yeah, they're real and not. Yeah, you got it. I'm glad.
one second here. Deboruni, how are you? Polly Rotterman was in the chat room earlier, about an hour ago. Yeah. She is doing okay for right now.
Yeah, prayers to Polly.
Yeah. Man.
Nuts. Well,
it's amazing
sir,
it's
go
amazing
ahead.
When you expect your friend to bring you an ice cap. Says he's going to bring you an ice cap, and then he never brings you an ice cap during the day.
Well, that's weird. Mark doesn't do anything. He should just get in this truck and bring you one.
You know what else is amazing is when your best friend is in the drive-thru ahead of you, and you place your order, and he doesn't even pay for it. He just gives you the old wave there.
Who's waving at you like that?
I will never let you live that one down, brother.
No, you shouldn't. You shouldn't at all.
God.
That's that moment that you pull away from the window and you go, oh, what a okay.
If you and Lorelai ever renew your vows and you allow people to speak at your remarriage,
yes,
I'm going to bring up that moment. Let me tell you, Lorelai, you can't trust this guy worth anything. If you're in the drive-thru at Tim Hortons and he is right in front of you, he'll never pay for you.
Right.
Oh, man.
Nothing to see here.
Have a good show with Lee tomorrow night.
I will do.
And I'll see you on Saturday.
Oh, most certainly will, sir.
Yeah.
All right. Good night, everybody. Have a good one and enjoy the Dave 101. It's going to rock.
All right. See ya, everybody.
See ya.
See ya. Tim James, everybody. He's awesome. Really awesome. I hope all of you one day get a chance to meet him. He is just a very, very cool dude. And he absolutely loves being part of the SOR family. Sure, he's old. Older than all of us at least. But he's just so excited to just be a part of all of this adventure. He's a good dude. Means a lot. Means a lot. I'm getting snackish and peckish. See if I can learn a word here. Another word for peckish. Let's see. Famished. Malnourished. No, I don't like malnourished. Greedy. No. Rapacious. Oh, very nice. Feeling a little rapacious. Oh, that's nice. Insatiate. No. Starved. Boring. Undurfed. Oh, that's nice. Feeling a little undurfed right now. I like that. Feeling gourmandizing right now. Excuse me. No, I would say rapacious or undurfed. Those are the good ones tonight. I try and use a new word every day. A new word that I don't normally use in my vocabulary. I try to get one in a day. It's part of my personal challenge. Ow. Part of my personal challenge to myself. What new word can we use today? Thank you tonight to Kira, CS, Necessary Dialogue, Shelley, Georgie, Pam, and Area 53 for the super chats. Greatly appreciate the love and support. Don't forget, you can shop into the Spaced Out Radio store. We do not have ugly swag, people. No ugly swag. Here we go with the final half hour of Spaced Out Radio. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. The Dave 101 coming up next, along with the weird news of the week. But first, I want to remind all of you that if you missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives on YouTube or any major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com, we have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. It's that time of the week, that time of the night, where I ask each and every one of you to get off my lawn. It's a Dave 101.
Open up the door, it's Dave! Who? Dave, D-A-V-E! What is this?
Dave's not here!
It's the Dave 101.
I can see you're really upset about this. I honestly think you ought to sit down calmly, take a stress pill, and think things over.
Dave the Killer! Yeah! Dave the Killer!
Dave's a mess.
All right, I'm going to get real with you guys tonight. Very real. I'm going to take a step outside of the box for a moment and just kind of talk to you about the UFO world, humanity, myself, a little bit of everything. You see, over the last week or so, I have seen a lot of crusty people online really talking about the whole UFO subject. People are getting fed up. People are getting fickle. People are so angry about opinions and of the way these subjects work sometimes that they tend to get personal with the hosts. Example, the other night, not that it sounds like a big deal, I was called a whiner. And somebody saying that they only came to our room not for the host, but for the guest. And I found it very insulting. I did. But I'm a big boy. I do this because I know that some people are going to like it. There are going to be others who are critics and some who just don't care for it at all. And that is quite okay. But the one thing that bothers me about it was I was also last week received an email from Walter Sterling from WPHT 1210 in Philadelphia, where a listener got upset with him because of he accidentally cut me off. We ran out of time in our chat, and I didn't get to finish my story. So the listener called him an a-hole, just like that, except using the full terminology. As radio show hosts, all we try and do is do our job. We try and bring thought-provoking conversation, questions, and maybe questions or opinions that may not suit everybody, but it's part of what we do. Not everybody's going to enjoy every show. There are shows that we do, even in our chat rooms that we have that are live during this show, where there are nights I will see people night after night after night. But if we hit a topic they don't like, they no-show, and that's quite okay. That is very much their opinion. They're allowed to do what they want just like you are. But here's the thing. Behind every microphone, behind every camera, behind every YouTube channel, every radio station, the people who are broadcasting to you are real people. A lot of news people, radio people, they may not actually believe what they are wanting or reporting. They may not actually want to report on what they are reporting, but it is their job to get the stories out and to have opinion. Now, in order to stick out by doing this job, you have to have an opinion that not everybody else has at times. For instance, I am very passionate about the UFO experiencer. Experiencers in general. Doesn't matter whether it's ghost, Bigfoot, Dogman, or anything. But there are real people behind the microphone that get called the names, they get slagged, they get insulted, emails calling you names, people taking pot shots at you in your chat rooms, whatever it may be. And you have to be prepared for that. You really do. But the one thing that the audience doesn't see all the time is the fact that we, as hosts, as public figures, are still quite human. My best role in life is I'm a dad. And I love being a dad. I try and be a good dad, and some days I don't feel like I'm a good dad. You wouldn't know that, though, because personally, you don't know me. You know me as Dave Scott, host of Spaced Out Radio. You don't know that sometimes with my depression and anxiety, that sometimes the wrong insult at the wrong time really can set you back. You don't know what's happening in my personal life or the fact that I work 2 full-time jobs and barely see my daughters because they live out of town, rarely get to see my grandson because he lives out of town with his mommy, and my own son, who lives under my roof, gets to see me for about, if he's lucky, 45 to 50 minutes a day. That's truth. Now, I'm not looking for sympathy. Not at all. I'm not looking for you to feel sorry for me or to feel bad about me. But I can tell you, in the Scott household, I cannot remember the last time I had dinner with my family because I'm always on the go. I am somebody who has to be able to bring the energy every night. And the one thing about working in radio that a lot of people don't understand, you have to be perfect every time. You do. You have to be perfect with your words. You have to be perfect with your enunciation. You have to be perfect with the way you introduce people, how you pronounce their last names, how you go aboard about being a professional. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And sometimes the people who look forward to your show, they're not impressed with you, and that's okay. Everybody's going to have an off day, but when you're a public figure, you're not allowed. Right? Whether it's competition with other channels or other radio shows or time slots, I don't really pay too much attention to that. In fact, that's probably the reason why I pulled away from a lot of the UFO world and have actually grown a backbone that if somebody is insultive to me or our guests on this show in one of our social media chat rooms, I just get rid of them now. I never used to do that before, but I'm tired of it. So I just really don't have to have the time for that. So the point that I'm getting at with all of this, the logical thinkers who are listening, and yes, that is you right now, you know that there is always more than meets the eye. And yes, I did steal that line from the Transformers. But sometimes it's hard doing what we do. It's hard to bring different information each and every night when you literally have 90 minutes to prepare for a 3-hour show. And in the meantime, if you don't get back to people, if you don't watch their video that they sent you, if you forget to make that text message or anything, you look like the jerk. You're in a real no-win situation being in this type of environment that we have created for ourselves. And you know what? The only ones we really have to blame are ourselves. We're the ones who put ourselves in this position. Whether it's because it's a career choice or maybe an experiential choice, whatever it may be, we put ourselves in that position. Now, I'm not trying to bring everybody down after an amazing show with Courtney and a great piece of writing from Tim. I'm not saying that whatsoever. But there are times when humanity has to kick in, and enough is almost enough. It's tough doing what we do. It's tough being able to always put a smile on your face when you don't feel like smiling because you have some stupid YouTube camera in front of you. Our radio audience, thank goodness, doesn't get to see that because it's easy to manipulate a voice when you have the ability to talk on the radio. But sometimes it just doesn't feel good. And when things back up, when things get a little too hectic or feel out of control, you just try and take that deep breath and say, do I really have to do this tonight? But then you realize that it's part of what you do. It's part of your internal combustion engine that keeps you going. It's the fuel that you need to bring a very, very good program to the people who are dedicated to listening to you at the radio stations that are dedicated to running your show. And I thank them all for that, and I thank you all for that incredible attention that you give us. But sometimes it's hard. Sometimes it's hard when you're trying to do your best to find a different angle, and the insults and the snarkiness flies a little bit too personally. And I learned something about this because earlier today, what my son and I like to do is almost every night we like to have a game of mini sticks hockey with a foam puck in our living room. We've got nets, we've got a center line, we play loud music while we're playing, and of course there's 3 periods, 4 minutes each. He thinks they're 5, but really they're 4. Because believe it or not, I have to account for every minute of my day. And that's really the only time I get to spend with him one-on-one during the week. And that 12 minutes of him and I playing that little mini sticks game of hockey makes it all worth it when you see the smile on his face. And if you're keeping count, he beat me 1-0. He shut me out tonight. I could get a goal if my life depended on it. And that made him feel good. The other day, we went to target shooting with legal guns up here in Canada. Because Lord knows there aren't many of those around anymore. And he beat me in a shooting contest. And when he was bragging about how he beat Dad and Dad sucks at it, nothing more put a smile on my face. So as we head into the Father's Day weekend, you know, some of us are trying. Some of us are trying real hard. And even though we only may have minutes during the day, we're trying to make the most out of those minutes, man. And this is why sometimes it sucks really bad when you get that email or when you get that comment or you get that troll who just tells you how bad you are. Because you fight that attitude every day thinking that you're not worthy of everything. When in the reality is, you are. You are worth it. And you have value. But some days are tougher than others. And the smile on my boy's face and the smile on my partner's face when she sees us both smiling and having a good time, that makes it worth it. That's what creates a family. Cherish the time that you have. Cherish the time with the people you love. And if somebody is trying to mess you over, just shake it off. It's a lot easier said than done. Okay, but the UFO subject or the Bigfoot subject or the paranormal subject is not worth arguing about. We can all have differing opinions. We can all have different takes. We can all believe what we want to believe. Just because I believe one thing that you don't agree with or you have something that I don't agree with doesn't mean we can't have a proper conversation about it. Yes, some days there is passion, there is harder questions, the voice gets a little bit louder. But I will say this. As long as you keep smiling and keep remembering that you have value, nothing anybody says can actually hurt what you do. That includes radio hosts like myself or the others on these stations that we broadcast on, or anybody else who's trying to just give a voice to a story that is out there. We try our best. Sometimes it's not good enough, but don't forget, we already know that. We're just trying to give you a good program, a good entertainment, and a good time where you can say, you know what? I love that damn show. Every night they are there for me. And that's what's worth it. That's your Dave 101.
As God is my witness, I thought turkeys could fly.
Ladies and gentlemen, here is the latest bulletin from the Intercontinental Radio News.
Loud noises! I am good at things. Fighting and reading the news.
It's time once again for Spaced Out Radio's Weird News of the Week.
All right, here's a weird one coming out of, I believe, Brazil. Yeah. So, a dad tragically died while on his way to visit his daughter after his throat was slit open by something commonly used in a kid's game. Father of three, Ariel Michel Henriquez, was riding on the back of a motorcycle in Rio de Janeiro with his wife on May 27th when tragedy struck. The 41-year-old was on his way to his daughter's home, and then they rode into a Chilean line. Yeah. So the terminology of Chilean line refers to a razor-sharp kite line that are used in kite fighting. Yeah, this is where children and even some adults battle it out against each other by trying to cut the opposition competitor's kite line. Do you remember the day of flying kites? Excuse me. So as Enriquez drove around the bend, his neck got tangled in the dangled string, and unfortunately, it cut him bad. Real bad. A passing motorist is understood to have provided him aid at the scene before he was rushed to a hospital, but unfortunately he tragically passed away before making it to the facility. Literally lost too much blood. After suffering the critical injury to his neck, he went into cardiorespiratory arrest and died on the journey. Doctors pronounced him dead at 5:53 p.m. Enriquez, who worked as a motorbike taxi driver and a cook, survived by his wife and three children, aged 21, 19, and the poor 6-year-old. Police are now investigating where the line came from. In the days since his death, another motorcyclist in the city complained that he had also driven into a Chilean line. And fellow motorcycle taxi driver Luan Mata almost suffered the same fate as Enriquez, as he explained that he did not have a kite-cutting antenna installed on his bike. Safety equipment rolled out in Brazil to help prevent kite flying or kite fighting related motorcycle deaths. Did anybody think that this was actually a thing? He goes on to say, this is Luan, I'm a delivery boy for a ride-sharing app, and I ended up having an accident, but thank God I was able to remove the line in time. Since I was going slowly, I was able to remove the line in time, but it's dangerous. This is a warning to all delivery boys. Always have an antenna on your bike because we can't mess around with these things. That is horrible. Horrible. Now, let's get to another one here. Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. Yeah. There's taking things too far, and then there's taking things 550 times too far. It's exactly what a woman did while partying with one of her pals as she accidentally consumed a copious amount of LSD. As you may have suspected, she hasn't been the same since. Probably still a little stoned. But, incredibly, The incident had an impact on her life for the better rather than the worse. So it was believed back in September 2015, a woman only known as CB snorted 55 milligrams of what she believed was nose candy. However, the substance was actually pure LSD in powder form. Typical recreational dose of the hallucinogenic drug is considered to be 100 micrograms, which is equal to about 0.1 milligrams. Yeah, she accidentally overdosed it. That's for sure. So, according to Talk to Frank, the world appears to be distorted by most people who try to consume all of this, and they do it accidentally. It's not very fun, but either way, she said it makes you feel euphoric. She had a high for a long time, spent about 12 hours blacking out. The vomiting wasn't very pretty, but she felt pleasantly high, she says, for the following 12 hours. Yeah, I just don't see where this would be fun. She could have literally died. I don't know what's in that stuff. I've never taken it. But apparently, she now has a good time in life. How about that? See if we can sneak in one more here. Let's see. What's our timeline here? No, maybe not. Maybe not. I think it's just time to get ready to say that, this has been a good night of radio, man. A very, very good night of radio with Courtney Marchesani, and then following it up with Swamp Dweller and Little Timmy James. A good Dave 101. What a good night. Thank you for being here. Thank you for making it fun. Because, you know what? There's nothing more fun than being able to talk about these weird, strange topics with all of you. It truly is a pleasure, and I can't wait to do it again. And as we say goodnight to you, we say hello to Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal, rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for your guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at work, at home, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight. YouTube, Twitch, Hellgap, Facebook, Spreaker, LinkedIn, Space Travelers Club, and on X, and hashtag Spaced Out Radio. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and Bigfoot Broadcasting Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends,
we're watching.
We own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo Train has docked for the night, but soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we've got room for them too. Good night, everybody. Stop. Publish. Choose a file. That one. Good show, everybody. You did well tonight. Rob, I'll probably be ducking out of here in about 5 minutes. So if everybody wants to, in about 5 minutes or now or whatever, start prepping for Sweet Robbie G on the Social Dig. He got a show for you. Excuse me. That way, if you're not tired, go hit the G spot over on the Social Dig. He'll go, woohoo! And he'll pull this red chin hair for you. He will. close this off. Here we go. All right. Rob pays me every weekend with amazing shows. That's how he pays me. And I have no problem helping out the G. Dude is as awesome as it could get. Even though he doesn't like hockey, which I find very weird. Tomorrow night on the show, who's coming on tomorrow night? I think it's Guru. Yeah, it's Guru time. Crypto Guru Ronald Murphy will be here. Thank you tonight to AJ, Kira, Shelly, Georgie, SC, or CS. SC. Let's call her SC tonight. Pam, Necessary Dialogue in Area 53. We will see you all tomorrow. My throat is killing me. So I'm going to stop talking here and go edit this thing. And I want to see all of you because I'm going to head on over there as well and just watch. Head on over to Sweet Robbie G's channel, The Social Dig, and go have some fun with him. You'll love it. Promise you. Have a good night, everybody. See you tomorrow.
Stay healthy, my friend.
You too.
You need bail money, give me a call.
Always, Dad. Take care.
You too.